what are you doing with your life? Life is already overwhelming enough without having to answer questions like these. And I just realised, based on how I ask it, it could come across in two different ways. Number one, what are you doing with your life? That comes across as very judgmental. The other way is, what are you doing with your life? That implies curiosity and exploration, which is the theme we're going to approach throughout this short, I don't know if this is going to be a short video, I have no idea, I haven't really scripted it, but anyway, I've been trying to answer this question over the last 6 months of my life because I've got some huge life decisions to make and I've been feeling extremely overwhelmed and I've had no idea of how to approach it. So it wasn't until yesterday that I was like, okay, there's bound to be some other people in the world, especially within my audience, who are in similar life situations where they have a big decision to make, or everything is changing around them and they have to answer a question as deep as this very quickly or over a long time frame, and they have no idea about how to navigate a path amongst the chaos to make a clear, good, well-founded decision. So I was scribbling down last night everything that I've been meditating on the last year, and I've come up with a 3-step process that we can use to help us navigate forward in this path of chaos. Because this question is extremely overwhelming, and when you're up against it and you have to make big life decisions, the most overwhelming aspect of it is you feel you have to do everything alone and you have no one to turn to. I want to let you know that it has been overwhelming as hell for me in the last 6 months. So I'm here with you, stood in front of a whiteboard, and I'm going to share this 3-step process with you that will help you navigate this chaos you're going through, answer a question like this, or just help you make better life decisions. I want to make it very clear, I'm a young man, which what I mean by that is I have not got all of this life stuff figured out. I'm making this video because I need to see this video right now, so I am not stood in front of the whiteboard about to tell you what to do with your life, because I don't want that type of responsibility. I'm here to give you a framework that you can use to figure out what to do with your life, and I'm going to be using this framework as well. To give you the bottom line up front, straight away, to bluff you, as we say, which is a brilliant communication tactic used by the military, bluff, B-U-B-L-U-F. The 2 main things you need to do in order to navigate this chaos of life is, number 1, you need to clear space in your life. You need to step back and consider the bigger picture. And then number 2, you need to use that space. And the analogy here is, navigating this chaos is no different from the 2-step process that a swordsman or a swordswoman would use to fight their opponent, in which they step back first, they clear the space, in order to then swing their sword. Either make a decision or choose a path going forward. That is the analogy we're going to use throughout this video. To give you the little gush on my life, over the last 6 months I have always known that I've wanted to move out of this house, essentially. But the person, my brother, who owns this house, now wants to sell it. So 100% it has become a reality that I need to move out of this house. Which you would think, oh, that's great, you already wanted to move out, that's fine. But the problem is I can go anywhere in the world, which I know sounds like a privileged problem, and it is genuinely a privileged problem. But what do you do when everything is an option? Well, 1, you spend loads of nights being too overwhelmed, trying to distract yourself from trying to answer such a deep question of what am I going to do with my life and where am I going to go? And you spend a few nights, you know what I mean, I'm joking, I'm a man, I don't cry. So that is my situation. Your situation could be similar, could be different. You could be thinking about who to be in a relationship with, whether to marry this person, where to move out, what job to take, or what to do with your life in a more general sense. It doesn't matter. Let's, blank page, no, let's cover the process now. The first point I would like to make, and by the way, this is going to sound very self-centered of me to say this, but my family watch these videos, so I just wanted to give a little heads up. I've just been to the barber's, so whenever I turn my head and you see this red bit here, this red bit on my face, that is because my lovely barber, as much as I love him, they're all Kurdish lads, brilliant lads. At the end of each time he cuts my hair, he's always like, you want a razor? You want a razor on your head? And I'm like, yeah, mate, go on, do the razor. Not really knowing what he's meaning by razor until he gets a 17th century cutthroat razor out and starts cutting the back of my head and the side of my face without putting any cream on. And I'm just sat there like, oh my God. So that is the red. Mum, I haven't been in a cat fight, don't worry. Jesus, haven't even started and got some matcha tea. Oh, that's good. Anyway, point number 1, clear space. We're going to begin with a principle that I realised 3 years ago when I was in a very similar situation of everything was changing around me and everything felt too overwhelming because I didn't realise this one principle. It's an equation, actually. Oh. When life gets too complex, that equals simplify plus cast away. When we talk about clearing the space so you can make the best decision going forward in whatever context you're trying to make a decision about, that space is going to come about not by adding things into your environment or your routine or what have you, but taking things away. Because part of the reason, in my experience, what I've realised is one of the reasons why making such big life decisions, whatever they are, can be so overwhelming is because you try to do everything at once. One of you guys commented the other day, a situation which was like, oh, my parents are getting divorced, I now need to choose a new job, I actually have to move out of the house I'm currently in, and this, that, and the other, and you listed about 7 or 8 things that you need to do, and the first thing that I could think of was this principle. That is going to be such a chaotic pit of overwhelm because this person is going to try and do everything at the same time. If there has been one reason as to why I felt so overwhelmed with deciding where to move out to over the past 6 months, it is because I've tried to do everything. There's been all of these tasks I need to do, and I've tried to group them all together and do them at the same time, which only leads to overwhelm. So the first thing you have to do in order to clear the space is accept that you cannot do everything at once, and the only way you're going to be able to navigate all of this chaos is to break it down so it is less intimidating. And this is where simplify and cast away comes in. Simplify means reducing your life and the activities you do to the utmost simplicity. And then cast away involves getting rid of all of those things that are currently filling up your space where you haven't, that are detracting from the opportunities you have to really deepen into this problem and think about it and plan and write down and journal. So let me get really practical about this, guys. What I'm going to suggest in order to create this space is, number 1, you have a... Got my notes here. By the way, this isn't a scripted video. This isn't what I'm used to. You could tell already. I have no idea what is going to happen. I'm going to suggest you find a low friction and a high friction way of creating space. If you can imagine, let's draw it in red. This is you. Oh no, it's my unhappy face because there's a lot of chaos in life. And this is all of the chaos in life. I should be doing this. Oh my God, all of everyone else's opinions and stuff. Oh my God, I've got to go to work. I've got to do all this stuff. I've got to take care of life maintenance. You creating space is simply carving out psychological and physical space within all of this chaos in which you can do this high friction and low friction space clearer. Now, what we mean by low friction and high friction space clearer is a low friction activity is something you can do throughout your day which is very, very easy for you to do, but offers you an opportunity to contemplate this problem, deepen into it, and really meditate on it. For example, for me, it's going on a walk and talking to myself out loud. Go on walk. Now, the reason why that is low friction is because the barrier to entry for me to go on a walk is very low. All I have to do is, if I'm in my room or in the living room, all I have to do is stand up, go downstairs, put my shoes on and walk. Sometimes I'm not always motivated to go on a walk, but I always realise, just like going to the gym, I never regret going when I come back. So that is low friction, a low friction space clearer. Something that you can easily do at the drop of a hat. And there's not a lot of psychological friction involved for you to do it. It's almost as if 5 or 10 minutes into that activity, you're in a flow state because you're walking, you're not really thinking about too much, or maybe you are, you've decided, okay, I'm going to go on a walk and really apply the next 10 to 20 minutes of this walk just thinking and talking to myself out loud about this decision I need to make or this chaos in my life. Doesn't take too much cognitive RAM in order to do that. In fact, it's very restorative. One note about going on a walk that I learned in a book yesterday about neuroscience. If you have the opportunity where you live to walk in nature, through a park or through the woods, do so. Because that is the difference between a restorative walk and a depleting walk. Because when you go on a walk in an urban environment, my voice just made a really weird noise. When you go on a walk in an urban environment, like through a busy city or down a busy street, you're in a more reactive mode rather than restorative. And you need to be physically restored while you're psychologically exploring, rather than psychologically reactive whilst you're physically depleted in an urban environment. So if you have the opportunity to get into green nature, do so. That is a low friction activity you can do throughout your day. And what we're talking about here in terms of time is you want to do this anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. Clear the space amongst everything else going on in your life. No matter what is happening, I'm going to do this low friction activity. I'm going to go on a walk today, or I'm going to go to the gym. Now, the high friction activity is that space clearer where when you go to do it, it requires a lot of mental energy. For example, for me, might not be the case for you. What this is for me is journaling. When I sit down to journal, within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I really have to think, oh my God, this is quite a daunting task, because I'm trying to meditate on answering the big question that we covered at the beginning, or trying to figure out why I've fallen into a negative pattern again. You actually have to apply your mind to focus on a problem and bring yourself back to it and really try to get to the root of solving the problem. That is high friction because you're not instantly dropped into a flow state. Little interesting thing, everyone's obsessed with flow states nowadays. The best way you're going to be able to learn something or really challenge yourself to psychologically work through a problem is to engage every now and then in these high friction activities. Because it's only by being in that high friction of you have to force yourself to focus on a problem that you're training your brain to develop the reps and the capability of being able to think through it. You don't want to be in a flow state all of the time. That means you're not really learning anything new. It's a bit of a controversial opinion, but anyway. So the real practical thing here, like we said, high friction activity, low friction. These are the practices of certainty, the two rituals you can rely on amongst all of the chaos going on throughout your life. And the reason why these allow you to carve out space in your life is because no matter what is going on in your life, when you do the low and high friction activity, you're just doing that thing. There's a really interesting thing that a online, angel investor or philosopher, Naval Ravikant, speaks about. He says when he's working out, the whole world could be melting around him, but it doesn't matter because he's working out. Me going to the gym is, I don't listen to music in the gym because I know that it's a prime opportunity for me to engage in that low friction thought where I'm not necessarily focused on anything, but I'm allowing those intuitions and those downloads from the universe, whatever you want to call them, to sprout up whilst I'm engaging in an activity. That's why it can be low friction psychologically, because especially when you go on a walk, you're not sat there with a pen and paper saying, okay, I'm going to get to the bottom of this problem. It's high friction when you do that with journaling because, of course, you have the daunting aspect in there. Got a bit carried away then. So it might be journaling for you. It might be going on a walk. It might be knitting. It could be drawing. Find your low friction space clearer and then find your high friction. And what I would say is do the high friction for about 15 minutes a day and the low friction anywhere between 30 minutes to 1 hour in order to clear this space. That's what we mean by simplify and cast away. You're casting away all of the excess and you're simplifying by giving yourself a high friction and low friction activity that you can rely on amongst all of the chaos. Now, let's get into the second point. Let me have some tea. This is such a risky thing with, not having a scripted video as the creator, because even while I'm talking, I'm like, am I waffling? Probably am a lot, but let's see where we end up. Point number 2. Now you understand how to clear the space, environmentally and psychologically, you now need to know how to use that space. In other words, you need to know what to think about when you're on a walk, if that's what you're going to do. And you need to know what to journal about if you are journaling or doing your high friction task. And this is where we come into point number 2. Use the space. So you imagine our swordsman. He's got a big old, oh, that's a bit sus. He's now about to swing his sword because he's going to use the space that he has created for himself. Okay, the first point I am going to suggest. There's quite a few techniques. Some of them might be useful, some of them might not be. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own, as Bruce Lee would say. The first thing that I'm going to suggest in terms of navigating this chaos is a quote from a philosopher or a poet called Horace. He was a Roman poet, I believe. And he said, when the vessel, or if the vessel is not clean, this is nice. Us just, having an unedited video, just chilling out, isn't it? Sorry, I'm getting a bit carried away. If the vessel is not clean, whatever you pour in goes sour. At first you might be thinking, what was he meditating on? Was he having a look at his Tangard thinking, oh, bloody hell hasn't cleaned that? Using your space psychologically and physically in your life and understanding this principle is all about getting yourself into the best mode of health possible. When everything is overwhelming around you, that is when it's most tempting to take the least care of yourself. And this creates a very, very tricky dynamic. You don't take care of yourself, which makes it more overwhelming, the situation. Meaning, you then make worse decisions because your health is in a really bad state. Going back to what we said about the main problem of creating this state of overwhelming complexity for yourself is in trying to do every single thing at once. It wasn't until about 3 weeks ago that I realised when everything is overwhelming, the best thing that you can do is forget about all of the decisions you have to make for a while, as long as you have. Of course, first ask, how long do you have to make this decision? Draw a little time there. That's the first thing you need to ask. How long do you have to make this decision? If you have a long enough time frame, then you forget about trying to create all of this complexity for yourself. and then you instead just focus on cultivating the best health you possibly can. Because you're then going to be better equipped to make better decisions if you're operating from a healthy place. Now, I've got a technique that will add to this I'm going to explore with you in a second's time. But I really realised this over the last 3 weeks after I was meditating a lot on discipline. If you guys watched the video before this, which was the 2 reasons why discipline can make you miserable, you might think by that title, oh, Lewis is arguing against discipline. I wasn't. What I realised very shockingly was the place in which I was operating from with my discipline was from a place of self-hatred. I wasn't actually taking care of myself because I wasn't operating from this place of wanting the best for myself. So I was in a state of overwhelm thinking, man, do I want to move out to Mexico, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica? Do I want to stay in the UK? I was thinking and meditating on these problems from a very negative point of view every single day. That I then started to neglect my health. I wasn't working out as much. I was eating junk food in order to self-soothe from all of the stress. And then it clicked when I went on a walk and I started to unpack that discipline without love is useless. You need to ask in each moment of your life, what would be the ultimate act of self-love to myself right now? And every time I ask myself that question, as narcissistic and a bit, as it sounds, the whole self-love thing, every time I ask myself that question, the answer is always a disciplined action, such as taking myself to the gym, which I did. I paid for a month's membership in a gym very close to me rather than doing calisthenics outside, and it's been such a safe haven for me in the last few days of going to this gym because it's an opportunity for me to unwind of all of the stress and really cultivate a other principle that I realised about 3 years ago, which is it doesn't matter what's happening in my life or how overwhelming life is. As long as I'm working out and I'm eating good and I'm sleeping well, I'm fine. And this is linked to something psychologically known as practices of certainty. We mentioned it a little bit as we was going through the space clearers. If you guys have subscribed to the newsletter, you would have heard me or you would have read me write about this a few weeks ago. Practices of certainty. Your health practices. I know a lot of you guys are already very healthy, so you're pretty clued up on this, and you guys are very smart as well. Practices of certainty are those few things throughout your day that you can rely on no matter what. Similar to the space clearers, but what this means practically is, for me, it's 1 times workout in the gym, 1 times nutritious meal, and then 9 p.m, lights off, walk outside. If you're really, really overwhelmed with everything and you're not feeling as if you're operating from a place of vitality, forget the overwhelm at this moment in time and just focus on cultivating your health over the next few weeks, because I guarantee when you do this, you'll then start to understand that your vessel will be clean, meaning whatever actions you take from that clean space and healthy place of vitality, nothing will be sour. You're going to make better decisions from that point of view. Okay, that links into a second point that I'm going to mention, which is a really, really, really fun, but sometimes scary exercise to do. It's something I learned from Jay Shetty. I don't follow him that much. He's like an online, or he was a bit of a monk, I think. And I was watching a podcast from him a few years back. And it was a time in my life where I had just splitting up with my ex-girlfriend. I made some very, very bad decisions, not with breaking up with her, but not handling the breakup very well. I was very young, I was 19, 20, and I was quite immature at that point. You live and you learn and all that stuff. But it was a reflection moment in my life after having made some bad relationship decisions where I then zoomed out and I did this exercise. And it's called the best... Oh, these pens, man, I love them. Absolutely love them. Just got some brand new ones. Best and worst decisions. And all you do, this is something you can do in your high friction space clearer, which is obviously journaling is one of those ideas, or you might even want to do this while you're on a walk. in your low friction activity, you find the 3 best decisions you've ever made in your life, right? You might have 3, you might have 1, you might have 2. If you can only think of 1 or 2, don't worry. And then you do the same for your 3 worst decisions you think you've ever made in your life. So you capture what they are. For me, it was very clear what my best decisions were. My best decisions were choosing to move back from Poland when I was 21 to go back to university. And there were some other good decisions as well. Deciding to go traveling when I was 18. And then there was another one. My worst decisions were handling the breakup, reaching back out to my ex, which definitely shouldn't have done. There was a family one as well. And then I can't remember the others. But you capture your worst decisions and your best decisions, and then you analyse the themes amongst all of those decisions. If you start with your best decisions, you then ask, whose voice was I listening to? Whose voice was I listening to? What emotions did I feel before and after making the decision? You might like to think, where was I as well? So whose voice was you listening to? What emotions did I feel before and after? And where was I? Or you might want to ask, what state of mind was I in? If you do exactly the same, you ask the exact same questions once you've highlighted your best and your worst decisions, and you want to analyse the themes. For me, so scary. What I realised is my worst decisions, the main themes amongst them was I was always listening to other people's opinions. Always. Like, always listening to what other people were telling me I should do. The emotions that I felt, interestingly enough, I always felt excited and passionate before making this big decision, which turned out to be a bad decision. I always felt that momentary, oh my God, I'm so excited to do this. Where was I? Environmentally, of course, that will depend on the decision. And then what state of mind was I in? Again, a state of impulsivity and excitement. Very, very scary place to be in, or to realise. My best decisions, however, I was always listening to my voice. As you could probably tell, I was following my intuition. And this is the cool thing. In all of my best decisions I've ever made, everyone disagreed with me. In fact, a lot of people were even like, why are you doing that? That's such a stupid thing to do. Why would you? But I knew deep down it was the right thing to do. Well, I won't give you an example of my ex because I don't want to bring that up. But anyway, what emotions did I feel? I felt very calm. I felt very, very calm whenever making my best decisions. Beforehand, I felt, it was still an excitement, but it was a calm excitement. After, deep down, I always felt accomplished because I knew I had made the right decision. Where was I? Of course, that would depend environmentally. What state of mind was I in? Yeah, calm, preparedness, and even, this was the last theme that I realised amongst my best decisions, I always felt a little bit afraid. Always felt a little bit of fear, and I never knew how it would fully work out. I just knew that it would, which I'm really excited for you to do this if you do want to do this exercise in your high friction journaling. What I was just going to say is, what was I just going to say? What was we talking about? See, this is where I need you in my room, actually, re-jogging my memory. What state of mind was I in? I was thinking about being fearful, and I wasn't sure. And then I was going to link it to something else that you can do. What emotions? I know that if I just carry on, I'm going to remember it. Okay. Yes. That is something that you can do. Oh my God, I need to remember this thing I was going to mention. Hold tight, hold tight. Moving on to something else you can do in a low friction space, so when you're on a walk and in a high friction space, is something called your board of advisors. This is going to help you make really good decisions, and also you can use this as a guide throughout any moment of your life. Advisors. What you do is you engage your imagination. This is you. Boom, 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 boom. And you think of your role models or some people that you admire in your life. And you have them as your board of advisors. You can engage in a sort of active imagination at times when you're facing struggle or you need to make a decision. And you can imagine these people in your imagination, whoever they might be. Could be online personalities or people you know personally in your life. And you could think about what they would want you to do in that situation. You might even think, what would they do? And this is the cool part that you can do. What would they do? Let's say you have a particular idea that you're running with or a decision you want to make. If you want to run it by some people that you trust, but you don't have a lot of people in your real life who you feel you can rely on, close your eyes, engage in that active imagination of your board of advisors and pitch the idea to them as if you're in the Shark Tank, you know, the Dragon's Den TV show. Of course, they're not going to be judgmental. They're going to be sat there, genuinely listening to your idea, and then you can call up in your imagination how they would challenge it or how they would think about seeing this idea. This is a really, really cool one. If you want to know my role models, I would probably pick Jordan Peterson, Alan Watts, Tulsi Gabbard. I really like Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's absolutely great. And I would pick... I'd pick my dad for sure, and probably Andrew Huberman or someone like that. That probably shows a lot about me, the people who I picked. And my mum, although my mum sometimes, you know, shouts out mum, but you know how mums are, they just want the best for you, which doesn't mean they always give the best advice. A principle here, now we're getting in, one more thing that I wanted to mention in something you can do in your low friction activity. As a lot of you know, I mention it in every single video. Blah, blah. I love going on a walk and talking to myself out loud. That is one of the things I suggested to do in a low friction space clearer. One little technique you might like is speak to yourself in third person. Oh my God, I've been using this over the last 2 weeks after reading a book called Chatter, which is all about how to manage your negative voice in your head when it's going a bit AWOL. I'm almost getting goosebumps. I'm feeling so excited to tell you this because it genuinely works. This is weird because I don't have anything to sell you about it. So this excitement is a bit weird. But when you're going on a walk and you're speaking to yourself out loud, in order to get distance from the situation and from your personal opinions and views and inner chatter about the situation, don't speak about yourself in the first person, such as I think and all of that. Refer to yourself in the third person. So it would be Lewis thinks. Blah, 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 blah. This is such a great way to distance yourself from the situation because you're able to almost approach this, or you will approach the situation as if you're an outsider looking in, and you will be amazed at how many things sink down into a level of clarity when you speak to yourself in third person. Awesome stuff. Really suggest doing that. What else have we got? Muchachos y muchachas. It is worth, seeing as we was on the point of the three, I still haven't remembered what I forgot, by the way. While we are on the point of analysing the best decisions you've made and the worst decisions, and I said that the theme amongst my worst decisions was listening to other people, let's quickly touch on You're in a state of you have to make a big life decision, feeling overwhelmed, of course. Like we've said, you need to clear the space and use that space. I really want to give you some warnings and know-hows in terms of how to socialise while you've got this big thing hanging over your head. Because family, friends, people close to you, if you do have people to rely on, they're going to want the best for you, but sometimes those intentions are going to boil over into annoyance. So, first principle here is a funny one. The best way to make the worst decision is to ask everyone's opinion. Amen. Not sure who said this quote, but I can't tell you how many times over the last 6 months I've had conversations with family members and everyone, they want you to have a clear plan for your life and they want you to have stuff figured out. But the tricky thing about navigating, talking about this big decision you have to make or your life existential chaos is people will mind their own business when their business is worth minding. But most people's business, this is going to sound so judgmental, most people's business isn't worth minding. Meaning their life isn't exciting enough for them to not care about what you're doing. Most people will ask you in situations like, oh, what's your plan? Have you figured it out yet? What's the decision? Where are you going to go? Because one, they're just trying to avoid silence in a conversation, but two, they want to focus on your stuff because it's more exciting than their stuff. Again, that sounds judgmental, but sometimes that's how it is. I don't have a white pen, so forgive me, but the problem with this is snowballing. Suddenly, as you have more and more conversations about this problem that you haven't fully thought through yet, the decision snowballs in other people's minds where they take what you have said as fact and they run with it. For example, my sister Jodie, she's about 4 years older than me. She does this brilliantly, the opposite of this. Whenever she's going for a new career or she's changed jobs quite a few times over the last few years, but each time she went to pursue a new job, she never told anyone about it until she got the job. Now, this wasn't a thing of she was afraid that she might talk about it and not do it, you know, the whole dopamine trade-off thing. She just didn't speak to other people about it because she was fed up of other people asking, oh, have you got the job yet? Oh, how was the interview? Have you doing this? Have you made the decision yet? And she didn't want it to snowball. And it was such a better position for her to be in to actually get the job and be like, okay, this is the reality in my life. Now I can talk about it and bring it to you in a conversation. Snowball. Be very wary of snowballing from other people. And I had this a week ago. I went to a family meal and I still hadn't decided where in the world I want to go. And all of my family was asking, so have you decided where to go to yet? And I felt forced to make, of course, I could have set a boundary and just said, I'm not speaking about it, which, by the way, is what you just do. You just say, I'm not talking about it right now. I still need to think about it. But I gave some answers like, yeah, I'm going to go here or might go here. And it just made me feel drained and depressed after the conversation. And I was analysing the emotion thinking, why do I feel drained and depressed after giving these people answers, like my uncle or my cousins? And I was like, oh, I feel depressed and drained because it's almost as if I'm lying. I wasn't outright trying to deceive them because why would I? They're my family. It was an incongruence between the plans I genuinely had in my head and the reality that I still need to think through the situation. So that's something to bear in mind. However, to play I keep bashing the mic. To play devil's advocate on everything that we've just said, you might be thinking, okay, Lewis, so are you basically saying that you shouldn't talk to I shouldn't talk to people about my problems? No, I'm not saying that, because other people are going to be very helpful in facilitating you thinking about this problem because they're going to have an outside-in perspective. But this is where you need to talk to the right people about these problems. We uploaded a video about 3 or 4 videos ago, perhaps you've seen it, on why venting is worse than you think. To give you the 30-second synopsis of this right now, venting as a whole isn't a bad thing. There's a common misconception that it's completely terrible, and when I first uploaded the video, the title was Why Venting is Always a Bad Idea, but I changed it because I quickly realised, oh no, it's not always a bad idea. Venting to the wrong person is always a bad idea. Venting to the right person can be very, very healthy. Who's the right person to vent to? The right person to vent to is someone who's first going to be empathic with you, to validate your emotions and understand the situation you're in without trying to throw loads of advice onto you straight away. But then they're not going to stop there. Because if someone is only empathic towards you while you're going exploring all of this psychologically hot material with them, what they're getting you to do is they're going to get you stuck in this cycle of co-rumination, where you're reliving the negative emotions of this thing that is troubling you without focusing on how to shift your perspective on it. So the right person to vent to is someone who's going to first be empathic, but they're then going to offer you a perspective shift on this issue. Now, this might not look like advice. Oh, I just spat. This might not come across as advice. They could simply ask questions. For example, you come to me at the moment and you say, Lewis, I have no idea where to move out to. What I would do is I would empathically demonstrate that I understand you. I would say, okay, tell me a little bit more about the problem. What's been upsetting you at the moment? Where are we at psychologically? And then once I've demonstrated to you that I understand you and the emotions have been discharged a little bit, that's when I might say to you, do you want my advice? If you do, I'll give it to you. If you don't, I don't want to come across as pushy. Or I might simply ask you a calibrated question, which is a what or how question aimed in a particular direction. It's not a manipulative direction. It's in the direction of how can we make this overwhelming load lighter for you so you can make a good decision going forward. They could be giving you advice if you genuinely want it, or they could be asking you, what's the positive in this? How can we overcome this? Getting you to collaboratively and creatively think about it. That was a little note on venting. 2 more things to mention before we finalise this video. When it comes to setting boundaries in your conversations, simply set that. If you're not ready to talk about something, but someone is asking you, what are your plans, or what are you going to do with your life? First of all, understand they're asking, maybe because they're genuinely curious, or 2, they just want to avoid a dead conversation. Set a boundary if you don't want to talk to them about it. Simply say, I'm not speaking about this topic right now. Let's talk about something else. Might be a bit awkward, but set that boundary for your own psychological well-being. Let's get on to 2 more points, which is a very important question, this second point. How can you tell? Before I mention this point, let's talk about thinking for a second. Thinking as a whole, give him a little bit of hair. You might be thinking that thinking is part of the problem that contributes to this overwhelm while navigating this life change. And that is true, but a certain type of thinking is what's contributing to the overwhelm. Thinking is going to be your ally after you've first cleared the space amongst all of the chaos, of course, and thinking comes in the form of journaling, comes in the form of walking and talking to yourself out loud, or whatever other high friction or low friction practices you have. But the specific type of thinking, I need more tea, that is going to be bad for you is something known as chatter. The analogy for thinking is like a lens you look through with a button on it that you press that either zooms you in to the problem or zooms you out. If you're constantly ruminating on the problem in this very similar way of you're constantly stuck in that empathic rumination of reliving the negative sensations of this problem, and you're just seeing it really zoomed up without zooming out to see the overarching perspective, that's when your thinking is going to be incredibly unhelpful. But if you're thinking along a productive and perspective gathering line of asking yourself those calibrated questions by talking to yourself in a third person perspective, how can Lewis best deal with this problem? Or what is the best option going forward for Lewis? Or how can Lewis see the positive in this situation? That is the thought form of thinking where you're fishing the answers from the depths. I can't speak. That is what thinking is when you're doing it along a productive line. You're fishing in the space for answers. But here's the important part. You have to be present for those answers to arise. And the main enemy we're up against here is all of the chaos around life. Life itself, of course, is quite chaotic and it can be overwhelming. You don't need me to remind you of that, but we make more complexity in life by allowing something that I have called, that we will call space eaters, into your space. These are the things, these are the habits that not only add more psychological complexity to your life, but make it harder to deal with this situation that you're facing. How can I draw a gremlin? Space eater. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. There we go. That's proof that when you don't think about it too much, you draw a decent goblin. Let me illustrate this. Scroll in. What we're doing here is we're playing the flip side of the vessel principle, which is if you're not in a space where you're cultivating good health, you're in a space where you're allowing the space eaters into the space that you have created. Of course, when we talk about the space, we're practically talking about amongst the work that you have to do, the studying and your other life commitments, it's the 1 or 2 hours you spend in that high or low friction activity or time and space psychologically throughout your life where you can dedicate some time to really trying to find a solution and just deal with this problem. But, pardon me, that was too much tea. Space eaters want to creep into this pond and they want to completely destroy the answers that you find by using up the presence that you have to be aware enough to notice when your answers are biting on the hook of your thinking and the space that you've created. So you can go, oh my God, I've realized that, and reel it in. Space eaters are scrolling, junk food, gossiping, getting stuck in that co-rumination, all of the bad habits that you know deep down aren't helping you figure out a solution going forward. There's no judgment here because, and I'm being very serious with that, over the last 6 months, I've fallen into enough ruts. I would need more than 2 hands to count the amount of ruts I've got myself into and the amount of times I've just been scrolling, trying to distract myself from the emotional distress that I feel from this problem. And like I said, deviated back into eating junk food to emotionally self-soothe. All of which has, of course, made the future harder for me because I haven't got enough space to be present enough to allow my intuitions to arise and me to think about, or me to realize, oh, that's a good solution. I didn't think about it in that way. Maybe it would be easier for me to demonstrate the difference between thinking and thought. These are two different things. Of course, the thought is the noun, verbally or linguistically, and then thinking is the verb. Thoughts come and they go. You have no control over whether they arise. All you have control over is the presence and that space you cultivate in order for them to arise. And the thoughts themselves aren't necessarily negative or positive. Negative thought patterns largely arise by you jumping on the thought and you thinking about it more, and you building the momentum of that thought in a negative direction. Your thoughts are the intuitions that arise in the space that you have created for them to arise in. Maybe you've seen, to demonstrate this one step further, maybe you've seen some videos pop up in your recommended homepage on YouTube of all you need to do is be bored, or why boredom is the key to everything, or you just need to sit alone and do nothing. There's an incredible utility to the ideas within these videos, because what the people are arguing is you need to create this space and do nothing in this space, but allow your mind to work for you. All the time that you're spending scrolling, you're on YouTube, you're zapping your mind away from the emotional distress of this problem, you're delaying the process in which you can find a solution to this problem and really get down to the deeper psychological truths where you feel grounded in your psychological foundations to then make a move forward, rather than feeling like time is constantly of the essence, you're constantly wasting time. You're wasting time because you're not leaning into that boredom, which is where you find the answers to your problems. So, bringing this all back, what was that point? I was mentioning how to tell when you're thinking too much. Okay. Beware of the space eaters, the bad habits, was what I was saying, because they're going to eat up in the space that you've created. How to tell when you're overthinking it. Look, you can tell if you're overthinking this problem if your emotions will let you know. I was on a bike ride yesterday and I was planning for this section of, okay, how can I answer the question of how can you tell if you're overthinking it? Your emotions are going to let you know. So it's going to be a very individual basis. I can't stand here and say, by the way, it's going to take about 2 or 3 weeks and then you're going to be able to find an answer to whatever problem you're going through. It's not going to be that, because it's very individualistic. Your emotions are going to spark to let you know that you're thinking about it too much, because you'll start to feel frustrated. You'll start to feel as if you are regressing backwards and you're not making any more progress. And you'll start to feel angsty. That feeling of, you feel you need to do something, but you're not sure what, and you've got excess energy. When you have excess energy bubbling up into other areas of your life, which then starts to manifest as anxiety, that's when you're overthinking it. And you need to use that angsty feeling as feedback that you just need to pull the trigger. And you need to pick a path or a decision, no matter what it is, and just utilize this energy. Because if you don't act on the energy after you've thought through the problem and you've highlighted some solutions, and you've got clear solutions in front of you, you're just not taking them, that energy that you feel bubbling up inside of you is activating to get you to move, to move your body forward in forward momentum. But if you stay put and you allow the space eaters to eat away at your time by scrolling more and distracting yourself from the problem, that energy that was initially positive is going to become destructive and it will turn into a poison. And then you're going to start to overthink more by becoming more self-judgmental. And the trickiest thing there, which I've experienced over the last 6 months, I'm really warning you about this, then your confidence goes. And when your confidence goes, It's not the end of the world. You can easily build your confidence back up, but it's hard to do so. So you're overthinking it too much when you feel that emotive energy spark within you, but you're ignoring it and you feel frustrated with yourself. Okay? Then you need to pull the trigger, which moves us in to the final point. Pulling the trigger. See, I need a wee, but I don't want to, I'm in the momentum. Chop, chop, chop. Okay, let's not do weird shit. Finally, point number 3. So you've cleared the space. You now understand how to utilize the space. And you understand the difference between genuine thinking productively and then overthinking it. How much longer we got long? Okay, cool. Mic is still charged. And you've arrived at the point where your energy is bubbling over and you feel you just need to make a decision. How do you best make that decision? Let's finalize by covering some principles. Before you make any decision, ever in your life, you first need to understand how much time you have. In fact, ask this before you do any of the things you're going to do in the clear the space, or utilize the space, sorry. Because that will really cement your mind into a time frame of, do I have a month to think about this? For me personally, I have the rest of February to decide where I'm going to move out to. That's how much time I have. So I'm understanding that, right, realistically, I've got that amount of time to deal with. First of all, how much time do you have to make this decision? If you're tackling the big, what do I do with my life in a general sense, you might want to put a deadline on yourself. You might want to say, I'm going to clear the space and use the space for the next 2 months to see what I can come up with and what arises. Oh, this is exciting just looking at the notes. There's some really useful points here. Not to set too high of an expectation, which brings us in to the next point, which I'm going to suggest after you've figured out how much time you have. Destroy the expectations. I can't tell you how many expectations I've thrown onto myself within the past few months, which has made nothing easier at all. I don't know who said this, but expectations are like fine pottery. The more tightly the tighter you grip, the more likely they are to shatter. Expectations are the bane of good decision making, because it's these pesky little things that argue you need to make the best decision, when the best decision doesn't exist, because of something we're going to get into in a second, or in about a minute's time. So destroy your expectations by settling on making the least worst decision, or just a good decision. That's how you can destroy your expectations. Another way you can do it, which is really, really helpful, like super, I did this when I broke up with my ex and I was dealing with the breakup, albeit, yeah, I initiated the breakup and all of that, but I was still struggling with it. Each day I would wake up with all of these expectations of how I should be dealing with these emotions and how I should be dealing with this existential chaos that I was in. But it wasn't until I read The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. By the way, guys, we have done a video on this, so you might have seen that video. And what you need to do, or what is useful to do to destroy your expectations is, get up a list on paper, you draw a table, and on the one hand, you want to write down all of your gremlin thoughts. Your gremlin thoughts are should thoughts. I should be dealing with this perfectly. I should know what to do by now. I should be in this position at this point in my life. Gremlin thoughts are should thoughts. They are the unhealthy expectations that maybe they're your voice, maybe they're the voice of someone else from when you was younger, it doesn't matter. They are your expectation thoughts. Your autopilots are the thoughts that you would like to change your gremlin's thought for, and they are much more self-loving. You could take the thought of, I should be dealing with this perfectly, no matter what situation you're in. You want to change it for the autopilot of, I can only do my best, I'm going to mess some things up, but I can at least learn from my mistakes. Your autopilots are much more realistic, and they take a while to program in, so keep up a list of them. Read your gremlins every single day, read the autopilot you want to change it for, read that page in the morning. That's what I did every day for 2 weeks, and that's what got me over a breakup. Jesus Christ. Ode to Lewis 2021. RIP. Anyway, that's how you destroy your expectations. Now when it comes to making the decision. Something I realised 6 months ago, so last July, I was living my life, recording videos in front of the whiteboard, chilling with you guys on the grand mega space which is YouTube. But then I got an email one day, an email from a lovely guy called Avery. He reached out and he said, hey man, I love what you're doing. I would love to fly you out to Croatia to speak in front of my 50 employees about part of the YouTube process, some things that you've learned along the way. I'll pay for everything. I won't expect you to do a presentation or anything. It would just be us, you know, chatting in front of everyone. But of course, we would love to learn some things from you, because they were a company. They're a company called Modash, who they basically help creators get sponsorships. But anyway, I jumped on a call with Avery. He was a lovely guy, and he was like, okay, so you're coming down to Croatia in 2 weeks' time? But I felt a little bit nervous, so I said to Avery, listen man, I don't make decisions over the phone. Let me get back to you over the next 2 weeks. And over the next 2 weeks, after initially falling into some bad habits like scrolling, eating junk food, engaging with the space eaters, I then realised I needed to clear the space, so I engaged in the low friction activity of going on a walk through my local woods one day, unpacking this decision in my mind. Or even though I feel nervous, do I really want to make this decision? Do I want to go and do public speaking even though I haven't done it for like the last 2 years and haven't socialised a lot and I've been feeling a bit rusty? Do I want to make this decision? Until a voice of clarity came through my mind and I realised, I asked myself, if I had all the confidence in the world, would I do it? And I got my answer instantly. And the answer was yes. I don't know where this came from. It was a thought that arose. It was an intuition that just sprouted up out of nowhere after I had cleared the space psychologically in order to be present to fish it from the depths. This is now how I make all of my decisions in my life. I've got a few more principles to cover with you, but I have never come across a decision-making principle that provides me with as much clarity as this when it comes to making big life decisions. Take the thing you're currently deciding over, that thing that is sparking fear within you, and ask, if I had all the confidence in the world, would I do it? I said yes to Avery, did it. It was one of the best days of my life. Because at the heart of decision-making paralysis is self-doubt. And if self-doubt is what is causing you to feel overwhelmed over pulling the trigger on a decision you have realised will be good for you long-term and that you feel excited to do, but you feel those nerves to do it, feeling momentary or not feeling confidence in the moment is of course gonna plunge you into that self-doubt. But if you imagined an ideal world where you had all the confidence in the world, and that allowed you to realise, oh, if I had all the confidence in the world, I would make this decision, then you understand that the reason why you're not pulling the trigger on this decision is because of a short-term problem, which is easily solved. Short-term problem of believing you don't have enough confidence. But the cool thing is, as soon as you make this big decision that is currently making you feel nervous, you're going to get that confidence reclaimed from doing this decision. Initial wobbling of confidence, make the decision, reclaim that confidence. Jesus Christ, hopefully that made sense. Destroy the expectations. If you had all the confidence in the world. Third point. See, I told you, I haven't scripted this video at all. I'm waffling. Could be waffling. Self-doubt. If you have a decision, this is the 25% rule. If you have a decision that you know you want to make, but you're feeling overwhelmed in order to make it because it's a big decision and you have a blank canvas and you're and you have no idea where to begin with it, break it down so it is less intimidating. And you do this by applying the 25% rule. Take that thing that is currently overwhelming, halve it again, halve it again, halve it again, halve it again, until it is manageable. And that halving, this might be, 5% of what the initial 100% thing is. This is your next step when it comes to executing the decision. And this also highlights one more thing. Focus on finding the what of the decision. So the decision within itself. Forget about the how. Like I said, all of the themes of my best decisions, traveling when I was 18, moving to Poland, moving back from Poland, I had no idea how any of it was going to work out. I was very ignorant. And I've realized now that if I don't feel ignorant before I do something, then I need to cultivate that state of ignorance by forgetting about how it's going to work and just focusing on the what. Something for you to bear in mind. That is your next step. By the way, this takes a lot of humility to do this. You're going to have to quench your ego, because your ego is going to throw those expectations onto you by arguing, oh, we should be able to deal with this thing 100% right now. It takes humility to swallow your pride and realize I might only be able to deal with 5% of this right now. And in fact, I should only deal with 5% of this right now because I don't want to overwhelm myself and burn out from making this big decision. Break it up so it's less intimidating. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more things. I have no idea how long this video would have been. Sip of tea. I'm grateful you're here. I'm happy. I'm happy. If you're happy, I'm happy. I don't know if you're happy right now. I hope you're happy. Yeah. Just to quickly elaborate on why finding a best decision is completely impossible, is because in life, you probably know this already, but I just wanted to remind you, when you're making decisions, there's no one solution that is going to solve all of your problems. There only exist trade-offs. To put this in very practical terms, if I paint the decision-making process that I have right now, which is, okay, draw myself with hair, because I've got a trim. I could do decision 1 in terms of moving out. I could pick option 2. I could pick option 3. Hopefully this will illustrate it for your decision as well. I have to move out of this, or I want to move out of this house. Okay, my options so far have been I could go Colombia, I could go Mexico, I could go Costa Rica. I could stay in the UK. What has been eating me up with a sense of overwhelm is I've been looking at all of these options thinking, what is the option that is going to really, really solve all of my problems? But that's where it's become incredibly difficult to make a decision because it doesn't exist, the best decision. If I stay in the UK, the trade-off is I get to stay in a place where I already know the language, even though I speak Spanish. I know the language like a native. I know my way around. I know how the laws and regulations work, but the weather's crap. That's the trade-off. If I go to Costa Rica, the weather's brilliant. It's a tropical climate. There's new foods and an opportunity to speak Spanish, but I don't know anyone there. Same with these two countries. Colombia, exactly the same as Costa Rica, but it's a bit more dangerous. Is that a trade-off I'm willing to make? To put that in other terms, if you're weighing up multiple different options, weigh them up with the category of, does this add good problems into my life? Because there's not going to be a decision you make that won't bring more problems into your life. But that's not a problem if you want those problems. If I go to Colombia, I know it's going to be more risky or more dangerous than the UK. Is that a problem I want to introduce into my life? With the trade-off of I get exposure to brilliant people, I can speak the language and I can dance salsa. Do I want to make that trade-off? Mexico, same thing. Costa Rica, stay in the UK. Does this add good problems into my life of staying in a country where I don't really like the weather? If you're not willing to make the exchange for the problem that is going to be introduced to you, or problems that are going to be introduced into your life, get rid of this desire completely and focus your energy elsewhere. Cool. Another metric you can use to make good decisions. Does this decision enlarge or diminish me? Might seem self-explanatory, but just to elaborate quickly, when we talk about enlarge, what we're talking about, of course, is expanding you into more progress, but that progress is putting you on a positive trajectory in life. Whereas if something is going to diminish you, long term, it's going to put you on a negative trajectory of progress. To give you two examples, if you're wondering about whether to stay in a relationship with someone, asking yourself before you engage in conflict, does this decision enlarge or diminish me? If you know deep down you want to still be in that relationship with someone, but you're afraid to embrace the conflict, making the decision to embrace the conflict will enlarge you because it's going to put you on the trajectory of building more trust, connection, and better communication skills between you and your partner. But let's imagine you was in a relationship where you know deep down there was a lot of red flags you didn't appreciate and you don't want to be with this person. Making the decision of engaging in this conflict would diminish you. So too would continuing to be in a relationship with someone because it's going to put you on a negative trajectory. No matter what you solve in the conflict resolution process, you're still in a relationship with someone who you don't want to be with. So your life over time is going to dwindle. So too, one more example, making the decision to stay in your hometown when there's not a lot of social opportunities for you will diminish you because it's going to put you on a negative trajectory, whereas moving to a new city where there's more social opportunities is going to enlarge you by exposing you to people who are like-minded to you, also exposing you to more career opportunities. That's enlarge or diminish. Two more things. Avoid snowballs, mention that. Okay, two more things. In this last part, I need a wee. I'll hold it in for you guys, don't worry. What we've spoken about here, why do I keep rubbing it with my hand? What we've spoken about here is pulling the trigger on making a decision. But I wanted to leave you with this. You might not have a decision to make. You might just be trying to, well, you will have a decision to make still, but you might just be looking at having a blank canvas in life, and you've reached a crossroads where you're thinking, okay, I need to do something new with my life, I need to change my life, but I have a complete blank canvas and I have no idea what to draw or where to begin. In that case, if you're really, really unsure of what to do in your life, even after you've thought about it and whatnot, you have no idea what career to take, or you have no idea what direction to go in. Just pick one thing you're insecure about and work on it. In fact, a life well lived can be you continuously doing this. Find something you're insecure about, work on it until it's no longer an insecurity. Now, a philosophical aspect of insecurity is as soon as you embrace it, it no longer becomes an insecurity. But to give you an example, let's say you're young, you're old, doesn't matter, and you're just at a point where you're thinking, oh, what am I doing with my life? I have no idea. I'm working a dead-end job. I don't really know what to do with my career. Forget about those big decisions for a moment. Just have a little analysis of your life. Think about one thing you currently don't like about yourself or the way your life is going. Highlight it and work on it. Let's say you might even think about some of your fears. Let's say you're terrified of public speaking. That's one of your insecurities. Say for the next 3 months, I'm not going to make a big life decision in terms of where to move out to or what job to take. I'm just going to focus on overcoming my fear of public speaking. And you go to a Toastmasters event every Wednesday, you put yourself out there, and your life will be in such a different place within 3 months' time. So too, it doesn't always have to be a social example. One of your insecurities might be your weight. Join a gym or join a community where you then focus on getting yourself in shape. Don't try to tackle all the life's biggest decisions at once. Just focus on one insecurity at a time. And again, if you continue to do that without even thinking about the big life decisions, you're going to be in such a different and better place in 6 months' time. That is the insecurity thing. And that is a point worth mentioning just quickly. Even if, you're here and you're deciding what life path to take, and you've taken these life paths so far, this is the one you're currently on. And you have an expectation that this is the life path that you should take if it's a particular career you want to achieve or work towards or what have you, or you want a particular family life. It doesn't necessarily matter if you took a life path temporarily that is the complete opposite of what your expectations are arguing you should do. Because what you're inevitably going to find along that life path you take is new lessons that might reorient you back to the life path you initially wanted to take, or will highlight other life paths that are better for you. To give you a quick example of this, my best friend Joe, he quit his job 6 months ago. He was a salesman. He was working a very high-flying job. It was great. He loved the job, but he reached a point where the job was no longer serving him. So he took 6 months off. He did a bit of traveling, but I got a call from him yesterday and he was in a van. And I was like, hey man, I swear you didn't have a car. The last time I heard you driving was when you was at Degusta, which was the last company. What's going on? And he was like, yeah man, I've gone back to work for 1 month, even though I wasn't planning on returning there. just to give myself a little bit of structure and to get back into socializing again, earn some money, and then reorient from there. And I was like, man, good job. It takes a lot of humility to feel as if you're taking a step back to then take 2 steps forward. So that's what I wanted to just mention there. Yeah, if you're really unsure, pick an insecurity and then work on it. That is great. Yeah, I think we will leave it there. If you make a decision and you're unsure of it and you want to change it, don't worry, it's okay to change decisions. Beware of snowballing with other people. And when it comes, I did say this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with, but this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with. The word I want you to ingrain in your mind that will really help you steer the ship amongst all of this chaos is initiative. Of course, first you have to clear the space so you can then swing your sword. But when you reach that point where you're feeling angsty and that energy is bubbling over and you've spent enough time in boredom to meditate on what path you want to map out going forward, and you feel that energy arise, it's then time to take initiative. And this is my favourite word, because all of the best decisions I've ever made in my life didn't come about from me just allowing life happen to me. They came about from me making things happen. Me getting my hands dirty and saying, okay, the harsh reality, as much as it sucks to admit it, is no one's coming to save me. This is completely my responsibility, my life. I need to take it into my own hands, and I need to go first, go positive, and be constant in doing it. Take initiative after you've cleared the space, and then you start to realize the energy is bubbling over and you need to make a decision. Last one that just came to mind. Hold on, I've got some. Sorry. I think I had some for decision making. Yeah. If I had all the confidence in the world, would I do it? And then the last thing I would say when it comes to making a decision between multiple options is if you have a few options in front of you, I would say pick the one that is the hardest in the short term, but will result in the biggest long-term payoff. Anyway, we'll leave it there because I don't want to take up too much more of your time. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's incredibly normal. Feel free to comment down below your situation. You might want to get some advice from all of us in the comments. Not all of us, of course, we're not all going to see your comment, but you might want to get some advice from me if you want. I might be able to help you out. But anyway, you're a human. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. That doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're a human. Please see the corresponding meme on the page. Oh, yeah. Tea's gone cold. Thank you for your time and attention. I wish you all the best in making this decision and planning your life path forward. I will always be here to support you. Stay disciplined, playful, and dangerous. Adios, muchachos y muchachas. See you in Colombia. Or maybe not, who knows.